I'll just give a little background on myself, and then this would be a lot easier with a question and answer because it's always hard to talk about yourself and what you're doing. So I'll give you kind of the high-level overview. But I come from a tech background. I was sharing with Nate earlier. I got into tech at a pretty young age, like around 11, and I started programming, and I learned how to do networking, and was always pretty entrepreneurial with that. And I ran my tech company actually all the way until 2015 is when I completely got out of it, mainly because the restaurant was way more fun, and I really enjoyed it. So I worked my way through college doing tech stuff, a variety of stuff, everything from, well, at that time was a lot of software as a service programming using PHP and stuff. And then I also did EMR installations for doctor's offices, which was a cool gig until ProMedica and Mercy took every doctor's office over and they didn't need people like me. And so I slowly got out of the IT gig because I just found it to be, well, it was just kind of wearing on me, you know? And you got to do what you love to do. And I really loved the restaurant. I was really enjoying it. It was a lot of fun. And I use a lot of tech within the restaurant too. So I can answer questions about that and explain how we do it. But yeah, so I met my partner, CJ. His name's Ho-chan. He goes by CJ in college. We were undergrads. Graduated in 2008. Weren't a lot of other opportunities out there. I was going to keep doing my IT thing, and he was talking about opening up a restaurant. His parents owned a restaurant. So we teamed up and did a business plan and then built one and really shoestringed it. So we didn't get any bank loans actually until our Perrysburg location. So we just kind of like burned credit cards and Home Depot lines of credit and basically every horrible way to finance a business venture. We did it, but we're also 25 and really didn't know any better, nor did we have any other counsel telling us not to do it, so we just did it. And we lucked out. But yeah, that's my super high level overview of how I became the co-founder of Balance Grill and why I'm standing in front of you. Totally open to questions.
So starting a restaurant, what was the first challenge? The biggest challenge, I should say.
Getting financing was like really depressing. We went to probably about 7 banks and we got laughed out of every single one of them, mainly because we didn't have a good pitch. We did a business plan like they teach you how to do it in undergrad school, which is completely useless. And we didn't have everything worked out. So banks don't really loan to anybody in the hospitality industry in general, anything that's service-based, which is crazy because that's kind of where the entire economy is shifting to. But they really like franchises, and what we didn't have was a franchise. It was just a concept, it was on paper, it was an idea, and at that time sounded completely crazy. Like we're gonna serve all clean food, and you know, nothing's gonna be pre-prepped, we're gonna buy everything in whole form, and the entire industry was going the exact opposite way in 2010. Of course, now everything's come full circle and there's like dozens of other fast casual concepts who do the same thing, but we were definitely against the stream at the time when we opened.
So was your first one in Maumee?
Yes, yeah, our first one was in Maumee in that little kind of cul-de-sac thing, yeah, off of Dussel.
So when you first opened up, how many people did you have working for you and who were they?
Yeah, so we had 12 people. One of them still works for us. Her name's Lauren, and she works with me every day in our office. We just put out stuff on Facebook and got connected to people, kind of tertiary to our friend circle, and it took 12 of us to get it open. We did a bunch of stuff like we rented, I remember renting a conference room a couple of times and going over like customer service training I downloaded online. Thinking that was like really good way to spend my time and efforts, but really you just got to jump into it and just do it and you just figure it out, you know.
Cost-wise, did you anticipate it costing as much or did it far exceed?
Oh, far exceed. Yeah, it like tripled the cost that we thought. We had like $30,000 in cash that we had scraped together. And that was like liquid cash I had sitting around that I didn't really want to spend. And I just thought it was a lot of money. It's not close to a lot of money when you're starting a restaurant. But we figured that out. We got over it. It was actually really lucky that we were doing it in 2008 because there was like construction contractors willing to do work, and they were willing to work with people like me, where you couldn't like guarantee, your bank was going to clear your check. And people were just down to do stuff, and it was cool. It was really helpful.
How'd you sleep at night?
I didn't. I still don't. It'll keep you up.
Your mind was constantly racing.
Yeah, for 7 years. Yeah, it's a really fast-paced business. There's a lot of variables and things that can go wrong. It's high stress in a way, but it's also really rewarding because you meet a lot of people and people from different walks of life, something you don't get to do in tech. If you guys work in tech, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes that can be like a very insular community. But I like the restaurant gig, and it's just fun. I like challenges. I like doing something different every day. So.
One thing that I'm running into with my startup, I guess you could say, is leadership, right? So what are some important qualities that you find in leading a team, especially when you're starting a business?
Yeah, it's a daily challenge. It's an everyday challenge. I still am working on being a good leader myself. I am really working on how to instill good leadership values and trends in our management staff. It's a constant evolution, It's tough because I'm learning how to do my own job while I'm also telling other people these are the best practices to do your job. So we're all kind of figuring it out together. It's not perfect. I thought for a long time you kind of need like a full set of education. At least that's how I was taught when I was growing up. You need this full set of education and then you can do this as though there's like a prerequisite. There is no prerequisite for learning how to run a business. You just either you do it or you don't. You just get into it.
What's your biggest surprise?
We get a lot of support. We get an incredible amount of support. I mean, just like platforms like this are really incredible, that people think the stuff that, I do on a daily basis is just like my daily grind. People like yourselves find interest in it. I think that's incredible, and you guys support it, which is awesome. And we get a lot of, just support from the community. A lot of open doors. We're trying to do this project downtown right now, and it's a pretty unique project, but we've knocked on a lot of doors at Lucas County and the city and just all over, trying to get help, trying to get answers, and we got a lot of help and a lot of answers. I mean, I don't think I've ever asked somebody for mentorship or advice and haven't gotten it, or somebody saying, no, I won't sit down and have coffee with you. It just doesn't happen. I mean, Toledo is a great community like that. If you went to Chicago, somebody probably just tell you to get out of their way, But you can pretty much call or LinkedIn or email anybody in the city and they'll help you, which is pretty cool.
If you were to advise somebody who is thinking of starting a food business or I guess any business, what is the one thing that you would say, oh, you absolutely need to do this, or on the flip side, you absolutely should not do this?
It's a loaded question. I would say, plan to 90% of it and just let the last 10% of it go. You can't figure it all the way out. You're not going to get a business plan that's going to tweak every little bit of it. Sometimes you just got to jump into it and start doing it, and it'll work its way out. Like I was just saying, it's a really supportive community. We didn't know how to do, what's up, Jordan? We didn't know how to do Balance. We didn't know how to make it the way it is now. The first year, we tried everything. We tried table service. We tried multiple sizes for every single item. We tried, plates and silverware, and then we went to all green and compostable. We tried reusable in between. We've tried a plethora of different menu items, and we just stayed open and kept our ears open and made it really easy for people to provide feedback and actually listen to feedback and used it as something positive. I think a lot of people who get into business, like they read Yelp reviews and they get offended, like like the people are attacking them, and they're not. I mean, these are people who just take time out of their day to give you free advice. That is, you're sitting, like if you get to a certain point in progression in business or like a second layer in a business, people pay for that. I mean, it's crazy, you know? And then on the other end, they get offended when they get a review on Google or Yelp. And you just have to remember, I mean, you're doing this for others. You're not doing it for yourself. That's the basis why they call it the service industry. So, I don't know, I just went off on a long tangent, but just jump into it and people will tell you what they want, you know? And at the end of the day, any business, not just a food business, is just about creating value. And you don't always have to have this direct link between creating value for someone else and then receiving monetary gain for it. It's not a direct link, it just happens.
In what ways, if any, do you think your experience and knowledge in the tech industry helped in the service industry and creating the restaurant and so on?
Every possible way. I joke with people, but it's interesting. So the restaurant business, I didn't even realize this when I got into it, mainly because I had never worked in a restaurant before starting a restaurant. I had never run a line. I'd never done any like bus tables, anything like that. I just went out to eat. I like to cook at home, and I just figured that was good enough. But I didn't realize how tech adverse the restaurant business is. And we use technology for everything. Everything from training to menu item development to our entire marketing scheme. There's really no area of the business that we don't heavily utilize technology. And that's pretty much what we're well known for outside of Toledo right now, is we're pretty much set up like a tech company. We just happen to serve food. So,
When you come back here in 10 years to tell us, to update us on where things are, what are you going to tell us? Where do you imagine yourself in 10 years? What are you going to be doing?
So my idea with Balance, which is really just starting to come out now, what we have is really the precursor to this entire system, which is we want to vertically integrate a restaurant concept and make that scalable. So what we're doing is we're starting with the restaurant concept that on the front end serves a lot of diverse selection of vegetables and then serves that as quickly as possible. You were asking about technology. One of the tech stacks that we have is future forecasting all of our models. So our inventory model and then down to our prep model. So that what we do is we cut everything fresh that day, which sounds like it makes a lot of sense, except if you work in the restaurant business, the majority of stuff that actually comes into restaurants comes in pre-prepped, meaning it's already pre-sliced and everything like that. And the way that they keep it fresh is through like food grade waxes and preservatives like that. So even if you think you're buying fresh food, it usually is not super fresh. And then you add to that, so that's what we can do when it's immediately within our zone. So, and all produce goes, usually all produce, unless you're going direct to producer, is going through some type of like a brokerage or an auction house or something like that. Here, all of our stuff that we get out of Toledo comes out of the Detroit terminal. And so all of that food has been 2 or 3 weeks old by the time you get it. And so at the end of the day, what we want to do is create a restaurant concept that is really vegetable focused and then vertically integrate backwards. So what we're doing here in downtown Toledo is we're building an 8,000 square foot aquaponics farm. And our goal is to automate that to the fullest extent possible and make that a scalable business model in and of itself. And then we want to replicate that in multiple cities.
So you talked about the tech that you guys use.
Mm-hmm.
Is this all stuff that you developed in-house, or is this stuff that you bought from a vendor somewhere?
It's a mix. So even our point of sale system's heavily customized. So the front end, what's downloaded onto the iPads in the stores, is commercially available. I had heavily modified the kitchen display service and then the back end that it feeds into. And we do that with the majority of tech softwares that are out there. So we use an operational software that's readily available, and I just negotiate in the contract to have it go into our databases. So we just host our own AWS servers, and then we can do whatever we want with the data. So they still use their back end, and sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't, sometimes we just build stuff on top of it. And a lot of it is we've stitched it together. So it's a mix, because for us, we're a startup in and of itself, so I only have X amount of time. Number two, creating tech products are heavily, resource intensive, and maintaining them, especially, even if we create it. So some of the stuff that we've created from the ground up is like the Twitter screens that are in the stores. Those are created from the ground up. We actually had them redone by another local development company here not that long ago, mainly because I couldn't keep up with Twitter's API updates, and it was just getting out of sync. So I wasn't calling to it properly, and it was coming back as rejected. So I can't keep up with everything all the time. That's pretty much what I found out. So a good, healthy mix of them all. But one that we're developing right now will be 100% proprietary. I could get into that in a little bit.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're doing the hydroponics system. So who's
Aquaponics.
developing that for you? Is that something you're doing in-house, or do you have a local company working on that with you?
There's a local company, a guy by the name of Dan Sadowski, who's operating in downtown Toledo or in uptown Toledo right now. And he's been doing it for 2 years. He's been really successful with microgreens. And for about the last year, we've been testing with a variety of the other crop that we use in the restaurant. And so we are, see you later, Will. Thanks for coming. Will Lucas, everybody. So we've been testing with a variety of crop, and we're basically taking his company and scaling it.
What is your favorite bowl and why? This is probably the most important question tonight. Just see.
I really like the nuts rapow, and I just like spicy food. So, yeah. Yeah, I get the crushed peanuts instead of the whole, though, just because they're more evenly dispersed. And I add bean sprouts, because it's boring.
My question
without.
is, when you conceived of this startup, did you run it by an incubator, and did they try to shoot you down every idea that you had? Seriously though, were you ever scared? You hear these statistics about the high failure rate of restaurants. I don't know what they are, but people randomly throw out, 85% of restaurants fail. Did you hear any of that? And did you face opposition when you were starting that was very discouraging? And how did you plow through that psychologically?
Those are all really good questions. There will, for every 10 people that you ask, is this a good idea? Should I do this? 9 people will tell you no. And 1 person will encourage you because they're your friend or your family. And that's pretty much how it is. That's why more people don't start businesses. And everybody we asked told us it wasn't a good idea, how often it failed. Even the guy who sold us stuff at Home Depot at the Pro Desk was like, why are you buying all this stuff and how are you gonna pay it off? And I was like, don't worry about it. It's on credit and you're issuing the credit. So there's nothing to worry about. No, I got no discounts. But yeah, I mean, people will, with or without intention, with or without malice, will discourage you because you're trying to do something that is in your head and in your heart, and they're not going to get it. And so it doesn't really matter what the statistics say. If you get into it and you like doing it, just do it. I mean, it's not, you can't script an entire, you can't program your way through starting a business. It's just not how it works. You can't sit down, you can't plot it out, you can't know. You don't know what the next variable is. You just have to get through variable 1, and then you get to variable 2, and then you get to variable 3, and that's just how it works. You can't, nobody can project forward and see the future, including the people who tell you not to do something.
Who created your menu, and how difficult was it to kind of make it concise and, targeted?
Yeah, it is very difficult. That's a really good question. My business partner is an incredibly talented chef. He works best when I give him certain variables, and what we developed was a data model that runs our entire menu. So you're asking different ways that we use tech. Here's another one. On the back end of all of our menu items, historical and current, we tag different flavor profiles, and we trend line them. So we just know what people are eating, what people are not. So we have certain flavor profiles that are like spicy and garlicky. There's another one that's like sesame and sweet, which obviously sesame is one of them, but so is the mango tacos. That's another one. It's in the exact same flavor category, and the people who purchase those typically cross-purchase those menu items. And if nothing else, then they're general flavor trends of things that people pick up. So what we watch is like industry trends for what people want, what's kind of hip and what's on the latest insider video. We watch that. We watch internal flavor trends and product mix analysis. And then CJ just comes up with the rest. So we just give him like these basic ideas, these things to start with, and he just goes with it. He's a super creative dude.
This is a biased question. Who's your architect?
Me and my dad have designed all the stores up until this point. My dad's an engineer and he works with CAD, and CJ and I have decorated them. So we didn't have a lot of resources, and we're exploring different design firms now, which is one of the reasons I want to sit down and talk to you. So yeah, we'll do that. It won't be at 10:30. I got kids.
So, other than maybe like the day your first restaurant opened, or something big like that, what would be one of your like absolute most like proud moments that you've experienced in starting the restaurant?
That was actually this year. So this year we got a bunch of national attention. We actually won the #1 Asian fast casual concept in the country and number 33rd overall, and that was rated by fastcasual.com, which is really cool. And then CJ and I are on their top 24 fast casual executives. So we got like a ton of press all outside of Toledo, and it was really the first time getting any kind of like recognition or anything like that. And my mom really liked it because she wanted me to be a doctor, so she was super into it. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. That was pretty cool because we got invited to this awards thing and they didn't tell us whether or not we won or where we ranked. And it was just cool, like waiting, 2/3 of the way through it and hearing our name.
Congrats, by the way. What
Thank
was the tipping point, you think, for the launch of Balance? After you opened, what was the tipping point that made it successful?
It's just been a continuous hustle. It's not really a tipping point where anything got easier or things just grew faster or anything like that. I mean, it's just constantly just one step at a time, working through every problem, We still have a fleet of problems we're working through right now. It's not over, it's not easy. My professor in college, I'll leave you with this thought, but my professor in college told me this one time. He said, business is two things: communication and making sure that you communicate with people adequately. And number two, it's fixing problems. And that's it. You just communicate and you fix problems. And as long as you're not fixing the same problem that you were fixing yesterday, you're on a good trend. And that's it. But you're never going to wake up one day where there's like momentum that's building that you're not going to fix a problem. It's just a different problem, hopefully.
Another kind of loaded question. So as a startup way back in 2008 when you had the idea, what could someone have done to help you get on your way, including just flat out giving you money?
I'm really happy nobody gave us money. I'll tell you that. Because money is just a commodity. It's like saying somebody gave me a sack of rice and now go start a restaurant. It's just a commodity, and you just trade it for other things. Something somebody could have gave me, it's really tough. I hate trying to like hypothesize about things that could have happened in the past, because that's just not how life is. You know what I mean? I can't go back. I can't change how something was at that time. Obviously things were good, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here right now. And you guys wouldn't be listening to what I have to say, which is pretty cool. As far as things that could have been better, I don't know. I really don't. I don't think that way. You know what I mean? I only think like forward. I never like sit and think about what if this would have happened or what if this variable would have been different. You can't choose, Mm-hmm.
So where do you see Balance yourself, CJ, like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years with the company? Anything you can...
I want to keep growing it. Yeah, I want to keep growing it. I know that. It's like addictive once you get started. It's probably like CJ and his tattoos. I don't know if you guys have met my business partner, but he like tattoos over his existing tattoos. He's just into it. And I like opening restaurants. It's exciting. It's exciting to try and build a company. We're at like 120 employees now, and adding on to that and creating the systems that keeps everybody happy. The The only thing I wrote down for this talk that I didn't even say yet, but is that I think my philosophy on business is that struggle, right? It's like, where do I want to be? It's where do I want to be and maintain this, which is understanding all the ins and outs of the business and trying to make everybody happy. So we have to make customers happy. I want to make employees happy. I want to make our suppliers happy. I want to make our landlords happy. I want to make, our co-tenants, every facet that the organization touches, I want them to have a net positive effect. And I feel as long as I do that, that we'll continue to grow. And as long as we continue to grow, the net effect of what we do amplifies, So if we can grow and we can be in multiple cities growing food locally, that's awesome. If we can go to multiple cities and just buy local food at the volume that we buy it at right now, I think that's awesome. I believe in our business model. I think it makes sense. And yeah, that's it. I don't know where it's going to take us. It could take us nowhere. So it's kind of the gamble.
You mentioned earlier that the business model that they taught you how to write in undergrad school was basically worthless. So if you were to give somebody a tip on how to write a more comprehensive, more efficient, better, how should I say, like more practical business model, what kind of tips would you give somebody?
So I was specifically talking about business plans. I think studying business models is a smart thing to do. And what I mean by that is, like, for us as a restaurant, it was smart. One of the first things that we did, which we were coached by a teacher in our class, was go study the profit and loss statements of other competitive restaurants that you want to be in. That's studying a business model. Having a good business plan, they'll tell you to have this 19 or 20 page long document or whatever. Nobody's going to stop and read what you have to say at that length. A good business plan is something you'll keep up on all the time. So I rewrite our business plan every year. I just do it, I sit down, I write it out, and it helps me document where I'm at on the journey and how we run the business. And I think that's a good model. What I use is just PowerPoint. So I just create what's called a pitch deck or a brand deck, which is also useful when you're pitching to investors. They like to see that stuff. I think something else that would be really beneficial is like a SWOT analysis. There's a new thing that's out there. It's kind of like a SWOT analysis, but it's a little bit more in depth, and I can't remember the name of it right now. One of you startup guys might be able to help me. It's a German technique for laying out all the aspects of the business. And a lot of investors really like seeing that. It's based on the business model canvas. It just takes it one more step further. But it's the basic. It's a premise where you fill in bullet pointed stuff on a chart and that's it. You just write it out. It doesn't need to be super complicated. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. So you write down your general ideas or how you know them at the moment. It's a snapshot, and then you just go for it. And then you learn new stuff, and then you come back and you rewrite it. So it's a living document. You just keep it up to date, and it's cool to save all your revision history and see how things have changed. Cool. Thanks, guys.